Hey everyone, welcome back to the Shadow-Proof Entrepreneur. I'm your host, Scott Reeb, and today we've got a special treat joining us, Jason Pierret, the faith-driven force behind the Alpha Brand Advisory. Jason's not just a master in marketing with over 2 decades of experience, he's a testament to how integrity and faith with business can lead to profound success. Jason, welcome to the show.
Hey, Scott, thanks so much. What a warm welcome. I love that. I'm going to have you welcome me into every meeting that I do.
Hey, I'll just follow you around and then walk into rooms and say, "Here's Jason." That's a new gig for me. I could do that. Thanks for joining us. As I told you pre-show, I just want to get to know you, let the audience kind of see what you do, how you do it, and how you help people. And as always on the Shadow-Proof Entrepreneur, we want to talk about how faith has influenced your life and your business and how those two overlap, because I think that's really important for us in the Christian community to see how this really works. We have people that talk about, well, I'm a Christian and put God first in my business, but what does that really look like? And so, we'll kind of dive into some of those areas. So your brand is Alpha Brand Advisory, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. When did you form that?
Yeah, so I am going on a year now. My path to that, kind of started as I was transitioning out of an executive role at a marketing agency. I was trying to figure out what was next. And honestly, I thought what was next was going to be another executive role. And, to bring faith in, kind of early on, find those doors opening like I thought they were going to. Everything looked right on paper. And, I was a perfect fit for a ton of the things that I was kind of trying to do next. And I just felt this kind of pulling that wasn't where God wanted me to be. And so that's kind of how I landed where I am today, going on a year of having my own consulting and advisory firm that focuses on sales and marketing.
Wow. Okay. So the first year, this is kind of fun. So you're at the end of the first year. I can remember back when I was there. How do things look different now 1 year into this?
Yeah. So, what's interesting is when you are running other people's companies, you think that, and I thought that it was, the exact same to run your own company. And that is not the case. I think that when all of the decisions kind of stop at you, there's a little bit of a different feel to that. And found in my professional career that when a decision stopped with me, there was always somebody else that I would engage with on that, kind of get their perspective on that, whatever the deal is. In my own business, what I find is when I'm stuck and I'm trying to figure it out, I mean, I do have other people that I connect with, but honestly, I'm finding myself more and more really kind of looking to God for some of those answers, just because I feel like he's the reason that I'm here, not necessarily just the reason that I'm here in this world, because that's a reality, but really the reason that I'm in the business that I am today. And so when I get to a point where I'm going, man, I wish this was different, or I wish this was going to go this way, find that I'll spend a little bit more time in prayer and in the word about that than I typically would have in my previous professional career.
Yeah, there's lots of places to go as answers when you work at a big place. And nothing will drive you to God like being the owner of a small business, especially in year one. I can identify with that. That's cool. Do you have any kind of a team that would be employees or vendors, or how do you work?
Yeah, so I have a couple of employees that I have brought on over this past year. I've got a guy who does some appointment setting for me. I've got an advisor myself. So some of the techniques that I use to generate leads and bring in, kind of interested prospects were things that when you're working for a large corporate client, they're not typically methodologies that we had used before. I have a cold email system that these guys kind of helped build into my business that functions very differently than say some of the ones that I had used when I was working in a corporate environment. So those guys kind of as a part of the team, and that part too has probably been one of my favorite parts of having my own business was getting to the point where I could actually bring on a team. The reality of entrepreneurship, and I think that you probably know this well, as do some of your listeners, is that the first part of entrepreneurship is really kind of a lonely road. You're trying to figure out what you're going to do, what that's going to look like, how that's going to feel, and how you're going to go attack things. And most of that stuff in the very beginning is you getting comfortable with those ideas. And when I finally got to the point where I could bring on a team, I felt like that was a place where, okay, the strengths that I have developed outside of my own professional skills, the leadership skills that I had developed over all these years, I'm now able to kind of implement those in my own business, which has been really fun.
Yeah, and unfortunately, everything rises and falls on leadership. And first, you have to lead yourself, which you just alluded to, and then others. And the other part can be pretty challenging, can be rewarding also, but it can definitely be challenging. So you said you have an advisor. Do you have like a coach you're working with?
Yeah. So, I got to a point within my journey where I was going, hey, I'm doing all the stuff that I know how to do, and I'm leveraging all the skills that I've developed. And obviously, because my skills center around sales and marketing, all the stuff that I teach and preach to other people, I implemented in my business. And then, I kind of was at this place where I was going, okay, how do I take it further though? Like what's next? And the one thing that I teach and preach that I wasn't following myself was actually bringing in advisory, right? So people who have got skills, who focus in a specific area that can kind of lend those skills to your business. And realistically, I didn't want to outsource everything, because typically don't advise that to people, because then you're not learning that aspect of your business. So you're kind of forced in a way to continue to outsource, right? So what I was really looking for was a company that I could partner with that then would teach me how to implement and build these things in my business. And that's what I found. And so that's what I've been doing. And I feel like that has been a really good decision for me, not only because it's brought an aspect to my business where maybe I wasn't the sharpest, but what it's also done is really given me the opportunity to kind of learn more about that consulting and advisory relationship in a way that is helping me to then better service my own clients.
Yeah, and yeah, in my book, The Shutterproof Entrepreneur, in phase one of the keys to strategies is to assemble a team of key advisors, one of which is a coach. And I've found in my journey over the last 12 years that I always need a coach. They're different. Sometimes they're different types of coaches. And you, like you said, there's maybe a specific thing you're trying to accomplish, and they have a specific skill that can get you there. But I've not been able to do it alone. I tried. I've had this firm 19 years, and I kind of was a lone ranger for the first half.
Yeah.
But I just kept hitting my head against the same walls.
Yeah.
And once I brought on coaches, that stopped. I would still hit my head against walls, but not usually the same one twice. And they would, because I could take it to them and say, okay, this is what's happening. What am I missing? And they're like, oh yeah, I've been there before. This is the move now to get to the next place. And instead of me having to do research and find that, I'm able to just on the next coaching call ask that question. And so I've found it enables me to really move forward much faster. You have to set aside your ego and realize there's people that know things you don't know, have skills you don't, and can hold you accountable to do the things you do know how to do. Because that's the problem with me, is there's things I know how to do. I know what to do. I still don't do them. I get busy being busy. I was talking to a business owner yesterday, and they talked about basically being a professional fire person, that they just are always putting fires out. And that's unfortunate that they feel that way. And I hope I can help them kind of get past that. I think every business owner feels that way at sometimes, but
Mhm.
your job really shouldn't be this reaction and always putting out fires. If you have the right systems in place and processes and the right people in the right seats, they should be able to put those fires out for you and then only bring you solutions to potential problems rather than you always having to run around and do that. And without a coach, that's really difficult. But one of the things
Absolutely.
I see there's like two types of business owners. What I call one, I call captives. Those are the guys that are putting fires out all the time, and they can't go on vacation because there might be a fire. I have to work 50 hours a week because there might be a fire. And then you have these people that I call shatterproofs that you have multiple businesses. They're spending their time at the beach. They're going on personal retreats.
Yeah.
They just live this lifestyle that we all kind of dreamed of when we started our businesses. And it's like, how do we get there? And we talk to them, they all have coaches, they have mentors and people that are
Yeah.
lifting them up and taking them to the next level. It's not all about the grind.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that I got into consulting and advisory and coaching is because for the first 90 to 120 days of every business that I have ever been in charge of, every business I've ever been brought into, there's a framework that I have worked within that business. And that framework is typically focused on, okay, who is our ideal customer and what is our unique value proposition? Do we need to fix those things? Do we need to adjust those things? And then, the next step that we would go into that I would lead the company through is okay, what's our customer narrative, right? So
Mm.
what is it that our customers are challenged with or should be challenged with, and how are we the expert that solves those challenges? And then what I found is on that foundation, in every company that I've ever worked with or worked for, we've been able to then build out a marketing framework where that foundation is a part of everything that we say, everything we post on social media, everything that we put in an email campaign, everything that our salespeople are going to say to somebody when they're reaching out to the right people, right? And so I have done that, and so I wanted to bring that knowledge base, that expertise to more companies. And so that's how I got into coaching and consulting. And what I would say, Scott, is one of my favorite looks at something like this really comes from the sports world. Right? So all of your elite
Yeah.
performers, whether you're talking about Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or, whoever you can put a finger on, every one of those guys has got a coach, a trainer, right? And they're the best in the world, and they are
Mhm.
still working with someone who is reminding them of the fundamentals, taking them through the next step, and being that sounding board like you're talking about, to saying, hey, my shot's off. And the guy goes, well, I can see why. It's because, for the last 15 shots you did A, and now that I've called you on it, they're now going in, right? Because there was this one thing that you were doing that
Mhm.
outsider looking at you, I can see. I think that that's probably just the greatest value of bringing a coach or consultant into your business, is the perspective that they bring,
Yes.
where you go, I should have known that, but I was too close to it to be able to call it out
Mhm.
myself.
Hey there, it's Scott Reed, cutting in for a quick moment. If you're enjoying the podcast and finding value in our discussions, you're going to love the Access Plan. It's designed for entrepreneurs like you, offering unlimited legal advice without the worry of high hourly fees. With the Access Plan, you can get the legal support you need at a flat monthly rate so you can focus on growing your business with confidence. Head over to reblaw.com/access to learn more and join Access now and get busy shatterproofing your business. Now let's get back to our amazing guest. Yeah, and those elite performers, they don't just have the coach for their team like Michael Jordan had Phil Jackson. They also have private coaches that are coaching them during their time off when they're not with their team coach, because even those coaches have a different perspective. And so it's just trying to figure out what you need to get to that next level. And I've seen the other side of this where people spend all their money on coaches and they're always signing up for programs. And you got to watch that too. You can kind of get over invested in that. but having the right people with that different perspective at the right time can make a huge difference as you're trying to grow and scale. So you're in the marketing business and you've survived a year. One of the problems I hear from almost all my business clients is that they don't have enough leads. That's almost always the problem, right? And so that's a problem that you solve. Have you been able to solve that for your business?
Yeah, so I think that there are always challenges in finding leads, but what I would say is for my business specifically, one of the things that I have found that works for me is number one, doing the foundational work that I was kind of talking about, identifying my ideal customer and the unique value that I bring to them. And then I focus pretty intently on organic social media as a means to be able to connect me to those individuals, right? The value in doing that is that once I've understood who my perfect customer is, I understand their challenges and the way that I specifically solve them, then when I am on social media, everything that I post, everything that I communicate is really geared towards that individual, right? And when I can do that, my goal is not necessarily to grab everybody via LinkedIn direct message and say, hey, we should work together. In turn, what I'm really trying to do is connect with the right people on LinkedIn, bring them into my network, and then allow for them to see that I am the expert. I am the person that has the skills that they are missing within their business, the advisory that they might need.
Mm-hmm.
And in being able to do that, I find that connecting with customers who at some point in time either may have needed what I have, interested in keeping up with that conversation, or B, currently need what I have and able to start conversations with them as a result of that, right? So it's really about putting the right information out there so that when someone comes in because I've sent them a connection request or brought them into my network, they're going to connect with me and see what I'm all about. That was probably the biggest, I don't know, left turn in my business that really helped me to bring more relevant clients and bring more business, my way.
Okay, and your market is your B2B, so you're working with other businesses.
Yes.
So and you're working on LinkedIn. That's the platform that you're focused on, correct?
Yeah, so I spend a ton of time on LinkedIn. I found that that's probably the best place for me to connect with my audience. I create a lot of organic content. I do podcast appearances that I can then chop up into short form and make sure that I put that out on social media. I think that the best way for companies to connect with their audience, right? And the reason that I do what I do is because I've found that is what my audience is looking for. That's the way that they want to digest content. That's the way that they want to be informed. And as a result, giving them what they want. And so the biggest advice that I give any of the companies that I work with, whether they're B2B service companies, whether they're B2C service companies, is ultimately figure out what your customer wants from a content perspective. Where are they going to get their content? And then be a part of that content feed so that those people can see you and know you as an option for whatever their challenge might be.
Okay. Wow. So what kind of services does your company offer to businesses that are needing marketing advisory?
Yeah. So we tend to really focus on marketing strategy and sales strategy, right? So that's obviously a big brush, but when you think about it, really we're doing the foundational work that we had talked about. Once we have that foundational work, then we're going to do an assessment across the marketing that you are doing. And we're going to look for gaps in that marketing to figure out tactics that you could or should be using to reach your ideal audience, right? So what I tend to find in a lot of instances from a marketing perspective is people have elected to maybe do a lot of things and not do them very well, or they're not doing enough things. And the secret to marketing working well is really consistency, right? So pick one or two channels, right? Let's figure out the places where your audience is, the way they like to receive their content, the way that they want to engage with companies. And then let's make sure that we are really consistent with the way that we're going to outreach to them in that way. The caveat to that is that if you're going to consistently outreach or connect with people, you need to make sure that you're providing value at every turn, right? So what I try and do is I would prefer that you consistently send one email a week versus 3 emails a week if the value that you're going to provide is going to be 1 email worth of value versus 1 email worth of value and then just some slap together promotion, right?
Right.
If you're going to post on social media, consistency is extremely important. I tend to post 1 time a day across my business page and on my personal page across my social media channels. But if that feels or seems overwhelming to you, that's fine. Let's cut it back to 4 times a week or 3 times a week or whatever. But let's make sure that we're consistently on that schedule. And let's make sure that what we're building into that social media is of value to the audience that you're looking to connect with. And then what I would say is, from a services perspective, the thing that really pulls it all together and makes it a go-to-market strategy, which I kind of pride myself on, is making sure that your marketing and your sales are aligned, right? So it's important for your sales team to understand what you guys are saying from a marketing perspective. And what you're saying from a marketing perspective should relate to that foundational stuff we were talking about, your ICP, your unique value proposition, your customer narrative. And then ultimately, as your sales team starts to follow up on those leads that came in or starts to cold outreach to individuals that are also going to experience your marketing, everybody needs to be saying the same thing. And if they are, what you find is both sides, marketing and sales, have helped each other to be more successful. And that's what brings more customers through the door.
Wow. Okay. So it sounds so. What I see in marketing usually is sometimes there's a done for you service where we take over your marketing, and there's a done with you service where we help you do it. Is that, and then I guess there's just here's the strategy and you guys go do it, come back if you have questions. So tell me, how does that work with your clients?
Yeah. So for my company specifically, we are really more done with you than we are done for you. To the tone of what we were talking about earlier, where I personally believe that if you outsource things that are important for you to know in your business, then you're going to be reliant on individuals to do things that realistically you could and should be doing, things that are intended to strengthen your business. So we are really done with you. There comes a point in time where we'll potentially exit that relationship. The bulk of the work that we do with companies tends to happen over the first 90 or 120 days of our relationship. They can continue to kind of keep us on retainer to help them, as an advisor, and to continue to answer questions along the way. But eventually there comes a point in time where we go, hey, you guys are in a good spot. We feel good kind of exiting, and we'll kind of exit that relationship. But I'm a big believer in helping, training, and bringing people along with that, because I think it's important for me to be able to transfer that knowledge to them so they can scale beyond what we've initially talked about.
Yeah. So what sort of things is it okay for a small business owner to delegate to an outside vendor? Like for me, we don't do any of our video editing in-house. I have someone outside that does that. We tell them what we want, but they do the video editing. Is that something, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that 100% makes sense to me. I think that the important part in that is to make sure that those videos and that video editing comes across with your vision, right? So there should be a measuring stick on, hey, these are 3, 4, 5 really great videos that capture the essence of our company and how we like to go to market and what we like to say and how we like to say it, our tone of voice, our vibe, right? Like all of that stuff. And so let's make sure that every video that we're doing falls into that bucket, right? So I think that that's great because the technical expertise of that is something that makes sense for somebody else to do because they've trained on those skills. But that is an operational piece that someone can do that isn't necessarily directly related to your brand from the perspective of we've given you the vision and you're matching and meeting that vision. What I think is that where it starts to become a challenge is when you have so many outsourced people that are allowing for you to be able to scale your business to a point where you feel really good, but then you're not as involved in the direction of those things. When you start to lose sight of the direction and things start to take a turn away from who your company and brand really are, that's when I think you really need to kind of take another look at that and go, hey, are there things where we need to have a little bit more control over these things so that we can scale and ramp in a way that feels good for us? That's probably my best advice on that.
Okay. Let's shift back a little bit to the more personal side. What does a daily routine look like for you?
Yeah. So for me, I wake up in the morning and I help my two kids get out the door for school. I've got a 10-year-old daughter and I've got a 12-year-old boy. So they're both in middle school and I need to get them out the door to catch the bus. My wife and I kind of tag team on that, and we're helping, we're fussing at them to pull on their shoes and grab their backpacks and, eat breakfast and get out the door. When I'm done with that, the very next thing I do is actually spend time in the Word. So I have found that if I don't spend time in the Bible at the beginning of the day, then I probably am not going to spend time in the Bible that day. And I find that that's a really important part of my day. Whether it's the insight that I get from whatever I'm reading, and I am currently in the process of going through the Bible recap for the very first time. So by the time the year is said and done, I will have read through all the books and every word that's in the Bible.
Yeah.
And that has been a really great way to kind of keep me on track. But that's the next thing I do is really spend time in the Word. And two things happen when I do that. Number one, I tend to find insight for my day. Later in the day is when I'll find the insight, but it tends to come from whatever it is that I read in the Bible earlier that day. And the second thing that happens is I feel like God is with me in my day in an intentional way, right? So as opposed to asking God into my day when I get stuck, ask him into my day in a more organic way at the very beginning. And I feel like even though God is always with us, I feel like he's more present, at least for me, when I've started my day that way.
Yeah, and you're more aware of it for sure. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And then, so how do you wrap up your day?
Yeah, so my kids get off the bus at about 4 o'clock. So when they get off the bus, there's kind of a pause in my business day where I connect with them, trying to figure out what happened at school. Do they have any homework? What's going on? I try to be very intentional about making sure that my kids understand that part of the reason that I'm running my own business and doing the stuff that I'm doing is so that I have that freedom to be able to connect with them in that way.
Right.
I love that. I'll go back to work after I've kind of connected with them for that half whatever, and then just be kind of really focused on making sure that, let's say, putting out any fires, closing any folders that I need to close from that day. So if I told somebody I was going to get them an email, or if I told somebody I'd follow up with them before the end of the day, making sure that I've been really specific and intentional about doing that. And then the very last thing that I kind of do professionally within that day doesn't happen until probably a little bit closer to when I go to bed. And that's making sure that I understand what I've got coming up the next day. And so I do try to carve out in the front of my day, every day, that time that we had kind of talked about, right? So I really don't want to take any outside calls from anybody until probably about 9 o'clock in the morning, so that I have time to be able to kind of focus on that stuff. I feel like most business doesn't really get serious or start until about 9 o'clock in the morning anyway. And so I've just found that because I've kind of tried to break my day up that way, block my day out that way, and be more intentional about that.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm more successful as a result of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I've really discovered in the last 3 to 4 years that I can really design my day however I want it. I used to
Yeah.
kind of let the business control my schedule, and about 3 years ago in May, I decided, no. So one of my challenges is exercise. I would plan on exercising at the end of the day or even at lunch sometimes, and something would come up and I would never get it done. And so I just built a new schedule and created the time I needed for me at a time when most people would say I should be doing business. But I found that business keeps going, and
Yep.
I can create the life I want. If you're going to be in business of your own, then I think you have an obligation to take the most benefit you can from it. And that doesn't necessarily mean the money. Like you've taken that flexibility where you can spend time with your kids at the beginning and the end of a day. You can't ever get that back. I'm at the point where I have a 22-year-old and a 25-year-old who's not married. And so it's different now. I see them some, but it's not the same. And you can't ever get that back. When I was in the first couple of years of my firm, there were times where I was coaching 2 or 3 soccer teams for my boys, and I would leave at 3 o'clock. And that's just what my day was. And
That's cool.
people learn to work around your schedule. So I would just encourage you, if you're listening, to look at your life, figure out what your priorities are, and make sure you've got your priorities, your personal priorities on your calendar, and work the rest of business around that. And if your business won't work around that, then reevaluate your business, because that's too important. There's got to be some way to build the life you want while you're building and scaling a successful business.
Yeah,
Jason,
I think
this
you're
has
absolutely
been great.
right, Scott, for sure. And I mean, I think that lived the other side of the coin. So when I was working corporately, I traveled a lot as my kids were growing up. There were times where I was actually gone, not consistently, but the added up amount of time of about 2 weeks out of every month. And I was successful from a professional perspective, but to some extent, and in reality, I wasn't necessarily successful with my family. And so that was one of the things that I really wanted to be mindful of as I started my own business was, okay, what does it look like to be very intentional about my family? And what are my what are my red flags and where are my no-goes, right? And what things do I need to have in order not only to be a successful business owner, but to be a successful father and a successful husband. And to the point, I think that is not only important, but I also think that there are people, the right people for you to be working with, they understand that, right? They appreciate what you're doing, and that's going to be the person that you're destined to work with, if you will. And those other people, it's not to say that you can't work with them, right? But if they're not willing to be flexible with the way that you've built your business, then chances are that's not your right client in the first place.
I totally agree. Well, Jason, what's the best way for the audience to connect with you?
Yeah. So I would love if the audience listening to this today would go and check out my website. You can go to alphabrandadvisory.com. And that is my website. There's a contact us form on that website. So feel free to, click there, send me any comments and questions that you have there. I would love the opportunity to, share a resource with the audience here. And the best way to do that is to be able to put the word hook, HOOK, in that comment on the contact us form. And I will actually send you my ultimate hook book It is 40 hook formulas and examples that I've developed that I use as I put content out there. Feel like that has been really helpful, not only for people that I connect with, but ultimately for my clients. I think that one of the things that I think we all hear, but don't often recognize, is it's not always what you say, it's how you say it. And so
Mm,
a lot of companies out there, a lot of entrepreneurs out there are saying the right things about their business, but they're maybe not necessarily presenting that information in the right way. And the way that you initially connect with that target audience has to do with that hook that you develop for your social posts, for your email, for,
yeah.
the very first thing that your sales team is going to say, or that you're going to say when you're trying to sell somebody. And so I would love to, at no charge, give you my ultimate hook book. So go to the contact us form on my site, type in hook, and I will send it your way.
Wow. We'll have that in the show notes. If you're not writing this down, you should be. Go there. I will be going there as soon as the interview's over, because that is such a huge part of what we do in our marketing, is trying to get the hooks right. And,
Yeah.
you have good hooks, better hooks, and the best hooks. Let's get the best hooks with Jason's hook book. Jason, thank you so much for coming on the show. As we wrap up and conclude our time together, I'd like to offer you a blessing. May you be blessed in all your endeavors. May you be prosperous in every aspect of your life. May your path be enlightened with wisdom, health, and fulfillment. May your work not only achieve success, but create an unbreakable business legacy. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed the show and found value in this conversation, please like and subscribe. Until next week, stay shatterproof.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me on.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as professional advice. While I'm your host, Scott Reed, and a lawyer, I'm not your lawyer, and this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship. The views expressed by my guests are their own and not mine, and they may not even reflect the opinion of the Shatterproof Entrepreneur Podcast. So we strive to provide valuable and accurate content, but we make no representations as to the accuracy, completeness, or suitability of any information to your particular situation, and won't be liable for any errors or omissions for the application of them. Always consult a professional or in the respective area that we've discussed before making any personal or business decisions.